What is happening, everybody? Man, thank you guys tuning in to another episode of the Agent to CEO podcast. And man, we've got a good one lined up for today. I'm excited to jump in, Mr. Joshua Wall, and really talk about all things real estate. Obviously, we can get a little different perspective with Joshua being up north, so we can get a little insight to what's happening up in the real estate world up in Canada. But brother, welcome. Good to have you, and excited to jump in with you today.
Thank you so much for having me be here today. This is an incredible opportunity, and I'm really excited about it.
I love that. Appreciate, like I said, appreciate you carving out the time, jumping in. So give us a little bit of background, give us life before real estate. And I'm always kind of curious, just our life experiences that kind of somehow lead us into this wonderful world of real estate. And so always kind of intrigued on the journey to get to this point.
Amazing. So I have been in sales and marketing for as long as I can remember. Very short story, but when I was a kid, my parents were with a company most people will know was called Anway at the time. And they sold this really incredible, powerful cleaning product, like concentrated cleaning products. Yeah. And I wanted a brand new bike. And I asked my parents if I could get a new bike. And they said, we don't really have money for that. And I told them I wanted an opportunity to be able to earn that money. And they said, well, I mean, if you want to take this and go out and show it off to the neighbors, maybe you can earn enough money to buy a new bike. And I took these concentrated cleaning products. So some kids started a lemonade stand. Some people went door to door selling cookies. I went door to door selling cleaning products maybe when I was about 10 years old. And honestly, do I think it was because I was a great salesperson? No, I think I had this, cute little 10-year-old kid knocks on your door saying, I'm trying to, raise enough money to buy myself a bike this summer. Do you want to buy these products? Yeah, people did. And that was my very first foray into sales and marketing. My whole life,
that's awesome.
I've been told I talk too much and I have an answer for everything. And if you know anybody who's in sales and marketing, the ability to be able to talk and have an answer when clients have questions will do you well. My parents started a restaurant when I was about 16 years old, and I took a job waiting tables at my parents' restaurant. And, at the time, minimum wage in Ontario was like $6.25. And I was making minimum wage serving tables, but I mean, I had 5-6 tables an hour, $5 tip per hour. I mean, I was making almost $50-$60 an hour at 16 years old waiting tables, just because I had an ability to be able to know what people wanted before they needed. They never had to ask to have their drink refilled. They never had to ask about the specials. And I mean, I loved being a waiter. I loved serving people. And, I was making good money. As soon as I turned 18, I started my marketing company. I mean, I won't tell you the whole story, but basically I did marketing from when I was 18 years old right up until today. I'm still doing marketing for business owners and consultations and helping people. And that inevitably led into a career in real estate. Ryan hired my marketing company to do the marketing for a new thing he was starting called The Crew. And one thing led to another. I became his brand ambassador. We started doing a lot of community events and fundraising, which has always been my bread and butter for marketing for businesses, is getting them more involved in the community, because people want to support businesses that give back in meaningful ways. And I'm sure we're going to talk about that. And then Ryan asked me if I wanted to be a realtor. There's a whole bunch of things that happened. I ended up running in a municipal election and getting elected to city council. I couldn't continue to run my marketing company at the time, so I ended up pursuing my real estate license as well.
Man, you've had a very full, eventful life, and so it's interesting to see navigation of the dynamic, but listening to your story, tracing it back to your parents, right? The ones encouraging you, pushing you. They're the ones really trying to navigate and hustle themselves, which is fantastic, because it carries over into the kiddos when you've got parents that are entrepreneurs and hustlers like that, always trying to hustle and maybe generate a new stream of income to be able to obviously navigate life. So it's really cool, right? Like, my mind was going just thinking of all my friends that I know that are like entrepreneurs and how they were selling blow pops at school, right? Go get a box, 100 blow pops at, for 15
I used to do that with pizza. I used
Yeah.
to go buy an extra large pizza or two, and I would sell the slices in the pit versus the kids having to go to the pizza shop and buy it. And I mean, they were paying like $2.25 a slice, but you could get a large pizza for like $10. I was making 10, $15 a pizza in high school. Yeah, that's so funny that you mentioned that specifically.
Yeah, that's great, right? Just always thinking about that. Where do you think that comes from? Is that a parent thing? Is that a just kind of hardwired DNA thing? Is that just an absolute desire? Like I want something and I need the money, so I just got to figure out a way to go get it. Like where does that kind of root and come from?
Okay, so I love it when things are fun, and I love it when things are easy. And I think that a lot of people kind of get stuck in a rut because things are hard and things aren't fun. And I think it's a mindset thing. Like for me, I didn't like just hanging out doing nothing at lunchtime, but that was what all the kids wanted to do. So for me, I, didn't want to walk down to the pizzeria. I knew that they didn't want to walk down to the pizzeria. So for me, it was just, what if, around 11:30, I called, placed an order for a bunch of the pizzas, went and picked them up, and then brought them into, I brought value to people. And for me, bringing value to people has been something that has brought a lot of joy and value to my life. I will definitely say I was inspired by my parents. My mom had the biggest heart of anybody I ever met. If you were in her sphere, you felt loved, you felt needed, you felt wanted, you felt like you were the most important person on earth. And that's a gift that my mother gave to me. And my dad, he was always working multiple jobs, just constantly. Still now to this day, he's working so many different things. He's one of the hardest working people I've ever met in my entire life. Yeah. And I mean, maybe I'm a weirdo, but I derive a ton of joy and value from working hard and having fun. And yeah, it's just, I think it's just built into my DNA. I like making people's lives easier, and I like surrounding myself with people who make my life easier.
Yeah, dude, that's so cool. And it's fun, when you can, sit back and reflect, many years later, right? And sometimes in the moment we're not realizing it, but being able to just those in our lives at a younger age that have kind of the most impact and influence on us. And so that's really cool, right? To be able to kind of see where, that we pick up those traits. And what's crazy too, right? It's like you either kind of fall in line with some of those traits of our parents, or you rebel and you do the exact opposite, right? It's like we've heard the story, right? The drunk father had two boys. One turned out just like him, one turned out exactly opposite of him. And so it's really cool to see kind of when we have that positive reinforcement and it leads us down that path to be able to embrace both of having fun and working hard, but am I coming from a place of contribution? And that's rare, right? To genuinely come from contribution to always add value. And to me, it feels right. Maybe it's a little bit slower grind, a little bit slower climb. I think it's kind of one of the words that I've latched onto and been thinking about more so lately, and maybe you can kind of resonate with this a little bit, is aggressive versus assertive, and really looking at the definition of both. And it's like, hey, we need to be more aggressive. I don't know if we need to be more aggressive. We do need to be more assertive, and understanding assertiveness is what you're talking about, coming from a place of value and contribution, but not hesitating and sitting on the sidelines and putting yourself in the game. Whereas being aggressive is putting yourself in the game for your gain only, right? So that's the difference in the definition. And I'm like, man, that's so good, because the number one trait of billionaires is assertiveness. That is the number one trait. And so when you are not afraid to get into the game, but coming from a place of how can I add the most value in a positive way, I think it starts to unlock a lot of things. So Joshua, so kind of navigating, talk to me, how did the marketing agency come to be? Like you stepped into that very young age at 18, being able to step into it. Like, what did that look like? What went into that decision to be like, hey, here's a path I want to go. I want to go the marketing agency side of things.
Okay, so that's a really great question. Thank you so much. I was bored. So I was bored with advertisement in general. It seemed like the only people who had the ability to be able to get their message out there were these big, giant corporations. And they were doing a great job, don't get me wrong. I mean, I was a commercial and advertising junkie. Like a lot of people skip YouTube ads or they have ad blockers installed. I deliberately watch the ads. I want to know what people are doing. I want to see how people are getting people's attention. I was working with so many small business owners in a time when our economy, specifically locally right here in Brantford, was in a really troubled state. And people were having a really hard time finding a way to get people in the door. And traditional marketing wasn't working for them. They were buying the ads in the newspaper. They were, doing their best to manage like this brand new thing that was social media at the time. And they weren't just getting the success that they wanted. I derived a plan that what my company would do, this is the very first iteration of my marketing company, was that how you have salespeople working the floor and you typically pay them a salary, you pay them a commission? Well, how about we change it up and you pay me a commission off of every sale that I bring to your business, but you split that commission that you would pay to me with the person who's coming to buy from you. So basically, I would get people to go and buy a mattress or get their tires changed or buy paint or, whatever, get various service. And they would give that person, a 10% discount and they would pay me a 10% referral fee. And what I was doing was this, aggressive or assertive version of marketing, where if you worked with me or anybody who worked with me, you would get a discount off the product that you had.
I love that. I
It
had
was exciting.
that's
I was making money selling all sorts of things.
yeah.
And I was very fortunate to get into marketing and media when video started to become very popular. So the very first thing that my company started to do, which you'll see now all over TikTok, YouTube, YouTube Shorts, live feeds, were these short videos that showed off the products and services that people sold, but like quick cuts, quick edits, just get to the point. I started off by telling you I was bored. People want to know what you do and if it's good. And then I learned that people also want to know why you do it. People want to connect with the people behind the brand. So I started to tell the stories of the business owners that I worked with. How long have you been in business? What inspired you to be a butcher? What inspired you to be a baker? What inspired you to open up a mattress company? What inspired you to be a mechanic? What inspired you to be a barber? And I started to tell those stories. And I did a lot of work with our local Chamber of Commerce. I still am a very proud member of our local Chamber of Commerce. It's an incredible opportunity. You're constantly meeting with like leaders in your community, executive directors, executive officers. You're working with, high-level management of these companies. And I just did what I thought at the time was a very unique form of marketing, where we didn't just show off the products and services, but we showed off the stories behind the products and services. And if I could just segue really quickly into real estate, that's what I do now for the Benson crew. We don't just sell homes. We sell an experience. We sell, the stories of the home. We sell the stories of the people. And, the same thing when we're working with buyers and we're helping them purchase in the community. We don't just say, oh, Brantford's a great place to live. We say Brantford's a great place to live because the people, the history, the heritage, the culture, the music, the sport, the restaurants. And here's a detailed list of restaurants. You know what I mean? That we're selling an experience here. And I was doing experiential marketing, and I didn't even know what that was. I was just doing it.
How did that, where did that intuition, that feeling, where did that come from to be able to go down that path?
I felt like that was what I wanted to see. That's what I wanted to see from the businesses that I wanted to do business. Like when we were talking about bringing value, I derive a ton of value from the products and services and people who are in my life, because those people and products and services are in my life because they somehow bring me value. So I expect the same when I'm selling a product or when I'm marketing a product. I want to lean on why is it valuable, not just on the basis that it is valuable. And how do I tell that story? So I talk to people about how I would want to be marketed to and whether or not that resonated with them. And it resonated with people, which was really rewarding.
So is that more of a gut intuition from you, or were there certain data points or things that you saw, or just enough like client feedback, just proof? Like where was the proof that that was the intuition and that was the right direction to go?
Volume, sales volume. The other day, I did a video for a local restaurant, and it was not a paid gig, nothing. It was just literally an Instagram story. I just showed up with my friends. We were out on a lunch meeting, and I did a video, and I'm like, oh, you got to try this new burger. And I showed a shot of it. I got a text message from the owner like a week later. He's like, Josh, I sold out of burgers that week because of your video. And I'm like, you're welcome, man. Like, I didn't do it on purpose. It wasn't intentional. But knowing that business owners were calling me, telling me that they had spent money on a newspaper ad, and listen, print media is still very much alive. It wouldn't exist if it wasn't working, but it has to be worked. You can't just buy an ad in the newspaper and hope it works. You have to have something that catches people's attention and brings people value. So I tried to just talk with business owners about, like, you can't just set it and forget it. And if you don't know how to do it, hire somebody who does. Right? Like, you could pay 2 people to shovel your driveway, and one person's going to do it in 30 minutes because they come with all the right tools, and another person's going to do it in 2 hours. And maybe it costs the same for the 2 people, but I'd rather pay the person who does it in a half an hour with the right tools than have to wait 2 hours for my driveway to be shoveled. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, there's no shortage of competition. There's no shortage of competitive business out there, but it's not the same. You need people who know what they're doing. And I found that there was a huge reluctance from business owners to spend because they had spent before and it had failed. And you can't just walk into a business owner and be like, yo, it failed because you didn't try. Nobody wants to be attacked by somebody who's trying to sell them a service. So a lot of my business was commission based. I would do the work and you would pay me for the result after the fact. Now in real estate, that's the norm. But many marketing agencies, they want you to commit to a $5,000, $1,000, or even a $500 ad spend. But if you're a business owner and you have done that over and over ad infinitum, and it isn't showing you the results, you can be very reluctant to spend that money. So I just felt like my results were value driven. It was like, look, if I'm successful, you're going to pay me what I'm worth. If I'm not successful, then you don't pay me at all.
Yeah.
And I think that's how I tracked it. That's how I tracked the metric. And I'll be honest with you, there were a lot of times I didn't get paid, but that's part of the game.
Yeah. And sometimes out of your control, right? Maybe, you provided the opportunity. They just didn't have the mechanism to convert and really capitalize on the opportunity that you put in front of them. But that's just part of the model that you chose, right? That was just kind of part of it. But to your point, the burger example is a fantastic example because it's one of the core beliefs that I have, especially in kind of the industry that we're in within the real estate side of things. And it's like, listen, you say you care and that you're an ambassador for the community. Well, show me how you're an ambassador and you care for the community. And to me, it's how do we help Main Street business, right? The businesses that are out there grinding, that are, in the most vulnerable position in the climate of the market is really mom and pop, right? The small business. And so I feel the agents that crush social media, that do an incredible job with social, I almost feel like if you are truly an ambassador for your community, that's a prime example of the things that you must be doing, right? Get out, support, shout, create content, push, promote. If you're having a great experience with mom and pops in Main Street, Main Street business, go give them a shout out, go give them some love, right? Show that is just an incredible, fantastic example of being an ambassador for your community. 2 other things, Joshua, I want you to kind of dive into. You said 2 words that are like dog whistles for me. And when you look at kind of the consolidation and reconfiguration of the functions in business, right? Standard business, you've always had, your head of company, your head of sales, your head of marketing, your head of ops, your head of finance. IT kind of moved at a seat at the table for a period of time. I believe that's kind of gone away and got kind of rolled in either from an operational or from really what we're starting to see more so now is maybe a head of growth that's overseeing sales and marketing together. So there's not silos. They're communicating and working together. And then you're seeing, that IT person just pretty much non-existent these days, especially with AI, but having the team well versed and not afraid of AI to be able to leverage and get things done faster. But one of the seats at the table, and we did this decade ago, and we did it out of necessity. And I'll tell you how that came to be. But that other seat at the table, when you look out within your organization, is head of experience. And it's one of the things that I was pushing hard with Steve and with Scott and with Rye. I was like, listen, yeah, there has to be an experience focus to the buyers, sellers, builders, investors in the marketplace. But y'all's model, when all three of you came together, your model changed. Your model is now real estate agents. That's your customer. So how are we creating experience for the Josh Walls, all the team members of this organization, which I believe you guys have something really special that you guys have out in front of you that you guys are building. But that head of experience is a very, very important role in business moving into the future. It's all about creating the experience that they have with you and your brand. And what is obviously the business metrics around it? If you want to, get into, okay, well, how is that going to make the business money? When you own experience, you're capturing testimonials, you're capturing reviews. Joshua, you know how important the social optics and the social footprint is to the AI era that we're in, and everything that's going to be based on to determine if I go to search in your market from an AI perspective, what's the AI going to give me? Is it going to tell me about you? Is it going to say that you're my only go-to source? Especially as more and more people develop that relationship with that AI assistant that's in their pocket, and they're bouncing ideas and navigating decisions. So it's extremely, extremely important piece. The business metric is referrals, right? Like when you crush experience and you own the experience that they're having within your brand, as much as selling real estate, or for you, like pushing people to buy a mattress, right? What's the experience that they have with that organization and with that brand? Because if you crush the client experience, the business metric is referrals, which is a much higher profitable business model than paying for leads and customer acquisition. So I love that. That was one of the dog whistles. The other dog whistle that you touched on, and I want to see how far you can unpack this, is stories and storytelling. And got one of longtime client. He kind of dove into a couple of the higher, I don't want to say higher end, but one of the bigger marketing conferences that happen every year here in the States. And he's gone 3 years in a row. This will be the 4th year. Last year was the only year that the topic became number 2. Number 1 topic was AI. Before that, 2 years in a row. And then last year it was number 2. So it didn't move. Just AI kind of jumped out in front, was storytelling. The importance of storytelling in marketing and everything that we do, how it's almost it's a table stake. Like you can't even play the game if you don't have the ability to tell story. Unpack that a little bit, because those are some buzzwords that like people that aren't listening for the keywords, they might have missed it. How critical in the importance of storytelling in everything we do moving forward, focusing on everything you do to improve the experience. And like you said, being a true ambassador for the community. Those are all 3 like non-negotiables, especially in the real estate space, to be able to navigate kind of the era of AI and where we're at, navigating into the future. But touch on the storytelling side of things first. I think it's super, super important, as much as you can unpack there, because if agents, if business owners, if business leaders, if marketers can grasp onto this and how you can become world-class storytelling, I think it unlocks a lot of doors.
Thank you. I would love to talk about this because I find myself being a storyteller. So everything, everything and every person has a story. And when you're with somebody and they're willing to share that story with you, that's something you should respect. That's something you should cherish. Not everybody's in a position where they're going to feel comfortable sharing that story. So if they are, it's definitely something that you should, respect and care about. But you also have to have, like, any good story is only as good as the person who's interested in hearing it. So walking up to a random stranger on the street and just telling them your entire life story, good luck. So there's got to be different variations of that story. So look at it like a novel, which then gets converted into a movie, which then gets turned into a bunch of teaser trailers. You have to have different versions of your story for different people. So for a lot of business owners, especially when you're working in real estate and sales and products, you have to have different versions of your story. You have to have the story that gets them hooked. And if they're hooked, then they stay for the whole story, or they subscribe, or they go to your website to learn more, kind of like your elevator pitch. You know what I mean? And then the importance of just hitting all the core notes of the story: the who, the what, the why, the when, the where, and the how it affects people. Because people want to know, like I said earlier, about where their products come from, why their products bring value, and the people and the stories behind the products. But I just don't think it's right to just assume that everybody cares about everything. Some people just want to buy a pair of tires. Other people want to know where the rubber's from. Other people want to know the manufacturing process and the ratings. You got to have different stories for different people, but you have to have a story. And you have to make it engaging and captivating. I was very fortunate to be a speaker at Laurier University here to a class that was specifically designed to be making long-form videos.
Mm.
And they were really worried that nobody was going to care. Nobody was going to care about their long-form video. And I told them completely honestly, you're right. There's a lot of people who are not going to sit and watch a 20-minute video about what you're creating. But the people who do, they're going to be so grateful. They're going to be so thankful because they care. They're your audience. They're the ones who deliberately and intentionally went to go watch a 20-minute video about whatever you're doing, whether it's a documentary on woodworking or it's a documentary on how a building was built. There's people who, YouTube creators out there right now making 30, 40, 50, 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour vlogs and videos. And some people are never going to watch them. But maybe they see a 30-second short of how this person's going to tell the story, how they're the very first person who ever swam across Lake Erie. And then the next thing you know, they're watching a 2-hour documentary about how this person swam across Lake Erie. You got to hook them. You got to have a reason that they're going to want to hear the longer version of your story. But I also want to stand behind, if someone is sharing their story with you, respect it. And be grateful that they did, because again, you were talking about age and experience. One thing I learned from being elected, and I'm very grateful to still be in 2 elected positions in my community now with the Real Estate Association and the Hospital Foundation, you got to stop telling people what they want. People need to stop telling people what they want. You want to know what somebody wants? You have to ask them. And if you're fortunate enough to have them tell you, you got to listen. Because human nature is not to ask for help. Human nature is not to tell people what they need. Human nature is, I can do it myself. Human nature is, I can do everything myself. I don't need help. To need help might be weak. So if you ask somebody what they want and they actually tell you, listen. But don't go running around telling people what they want. You might get a bunch of head nods. You might get those fake yeses and smiles and nods, which are the worst. Chris Voss talks about it, right? It's the artificial yes. I'm sorry, I'm going off on a tangent here.
No, this is great.
Stop telling people what they need and start asking people what they need. And when they tell you, listen and implement it and find a way to help them.
That's so good. That's so good. And it to be, and maybe there is some truth in that, right? To be a great storyteller starts with being a great listener, and really being able to listen, to be able to craft that story that really is going to connect and resonate with them. But and I'm with you on the long form content. Like maybe it's all the work with, all the work with Dan Kennedy and even Jay Abraham, kind of our mentors, long time mentors, but it's the long form copy. It's the long form content, because like you said, the person that does consume it all, that spends all of that time with you, they're just putting themselves in a better position for you to be able to have, a longer relationship with them. And I think, Hermosi had one of his studies, I think he said, is like 7 to 8 hours that somebody, and this is like for high ticket sales, which we are in high ticket sales. Real estate is a high ticket sales game. And so that's why our branding, our message, this long form content, the copy, the things that you're able to put out there, his is, 7 to 8 hours with you before people build enough of that trust. Obviously, case studies, testimonials, peer-to-peer reviews help accelerate that time. But if you just operate on, people just haven't had enough time with me yet to build the trust to be able to move forward with this high ticket sale. And so I think it's just the mindset that you have with the content and the copy and the message, in knowing that, okay, let me put out, a breakdown of the home buying, home selling process, driving people to whatever to consume. And the more that they can consume with it, the more trust I'm able to build, goodwill I'm being able to build to make it, a relationship that's going to be, helping them get what they want. And obviously, when you help people get what they want, that's, money exchanges hands. So I think it's, I think you're spot on, man. I really love that. But for you with that, was there anything that kind of kickstarted the storytelling process for you? Was it like, man, diving into certain books, having a certain mentor that really landed that storytelling process for you?
I'm going to just kind of repeat what I said earlier in the podcast. I want to treat people the way that I want to be treated. And your tribe is your vibe. The people that you connect with instinctively will be people who you connect with. And if you're trying to please everybody, you're going to please nobody. So I find, from a personal perspective, that the kind of people that I do business with, the kind of business owners, the nonprofits I work with, or my clients, they're the kind of people who want somebody like me and what I'm selling and the way that I do it. And again, that basis is back to how I want to be treated. Do you know how much of my life I spent trying to make everybody happy and was miserable, wondering why I wasn't happy? Because I was chasing the wrong things. I was surrounding myself with the wrong people. Now, don't get me wrong. I love a challenge, but wasting your time spinning your tires with people who are never going to do business with you, or with people who don't care about you or care about your story or care about what you're selling, that just sounds like torture now. And one of the reasons that I am so grateful to be a part of such a large team is that if I find myself in a situation where I'm not necessarily vibing with somebody, there's a very high likelihood that you would vibe very well with someone else on my team. Whenever I go to a chamber event, whenever I go to a networking event, or wherever I go, anywhere where I'm going to be meeting high quality, high quantity people, I always bring a group of people with me, especially people from my team, because you can go to an event where there's 150 people and it is impossible to have 150 high quality conversations, but you can have 5 or 10 really great conversations. And if you've got 3 or 4 people with you, your teammates, your partners, people who are like you but different, you're more likely to make a positive impact on more people's lives, have more meaningful conversations, and derive more value from the experience. Because back in the day, when I was like 18, 19, 20 years old, going out to the chamber event, I was running around, shaking everybody's hand, having cards, having these 30-second conversations with everybody, having conversations about nothing. And now 40-year-old me goes to the chamber event and has 5 meaningful conversations with 5 great people.
Yeah. It's I think settling into kind of the intent, right? What is my objective walking into this event, knowing, like you said, I can't connect with 150, but strategically I can connect with 4 to 5 meaningful people that can really move the needle in our lives, right? Being able to have that conversation and make those connections. Joshua, what compelled you or wanting to get into kind of sitting on the city council, being on these different boards, being kind of in a thrown into a political light? What I mean, what compelled you to go that route?
I can't stand complaining about something and not being a part of making a difference. There are so many people who have so many great ideas, but they don't have what I have. And what I have is, the ability to be able to speak and be heard and be listened to. And it's something I'm grateful for every single day. The fact that you're even welcoming me onto your podcast and introducing me to your audience is a blessing and an honor. But not everybody can do this. Not everybody feels comfortable doing what I do. And when I ran for city council, one of the things that I wanted to have was the people I represented to feel like they had a voice in that room. Because so many people I talked to were so disenfranchised with government. They felt like it was just constantly, they were being told what was happening in their community, but they didn't feel like they had an opportunity to be able to have a voice. And I'm going to lie, that's how I felt. That's how I felt. And it's the same way I talk about, I wanted to be the kind of city councilor that I wanted. So I went out, and instead of knocking on people's doors and telling them what I was going to do when I got elected, I knocked on the door, and I'll never forget it, but I knocked on the door and I said, my name's Joshua Wall and I'm running for Ward 5 City Council. When I get elected, what do you want me to do? And it stopped people in their tracks. Instead of them listening to me on their porch for 20 minutes to tell them about my platform and all the different things I was going to do when I got elected, I went from, I'm Joshua Wall and here's what I'm going to do for you, to I'm Joshua Wall, what can I do for you? And people started telling me the real problems. They started talking about speeding in their community. They started talking about stoplights, streetlights, crime. They started talking to me about education and bus routes. They started talking about garbage piling up or the recycling not being collected or overgrown leaves. And some of the best things that people told me was, who you need to talk to? You got to go talk to Joel over at number 97. He's lived in this community for 30 years. He'll give you the lowdown on the entire neighborhood. And when I did get elected, and I am so grateful for that. I mean, to be elected by the people of your community is a blessing and an honor. But I ran against 11 other individuals. It wasn't like it was just me and two other people running. I mean, I won. And when I got elected, every single week before the meeting, I would go to social media, I would go to the neighborhood associations, and I would bring a list of questions that people would send in to me through social media or by email. And I would post the agendas online. I would take the time to go through the agendas with people. And I mean, was it perfect? No. Did I learn a lot of lessons that if I ever go back to city council, I would change? But what I tried to do was I tried to provide a transparency in government that I had never seen before. And I wanted to do things differently. I am so tired of the status quo, things being done a certain way just because they've been done that way forever. We need change. We need things to be different. And Steve Howes, Councillor Steve Howes, I'll give him all the credit in the world. When I was young and just having got elected, I was at an event and I was talking about change. I was talking about change this, change that, change this. And he stopped me. He's like, Josh, he's like, you got to stop telling everybody you're going to change everything, man. People are terrified of change. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, tell them how you're going to improve it. Start talking about how you're going to make improvements. You're going to improve this. You're going to improve that. Many small improvements lead to fundamental change. And I completely stripped the word change from my vocabulary. Now, when I'm addressing people, I ask them, how would you like to see this improve? What would you like to see done differently? How would you want it to be if you were in charge? And it changed, it improved my leadership style. It gave me the ability to be able to bring about big change by making small improvements. That was a lot, but it's something I'm very passionate about.
Yeah, no, I love it. And as you were talking there, right, going in and what would you like to see improve? What would you like to see change? And I'm diving back into Dan Heath's book Reset, and where one of the stories in the beginning that he talks about is that you got to kind of go in and see the work, right? To improve change, you got to get out on the front lines. You got to really see what's going on. And that's your example of knocking on the doors and, hey, running, getting in. What would you like to see change? What would you like to see improve? You're actually going to the front lines and asking the questions and seeing really what's happening, and not, sitting in an office or not even, connecting and being relevant to the people in the community. But there's an example he gives in there that this manufacturing company, their one of their big machines, and I forget what type of manufacturer, what type of company it was, but they shut the machine down at 11:30 every day. And this turnaround expert comes in and goes, why do we turn this machine off at 11:30 every day? And the person running the machine goes, I don't know. That's the way it's been ever since I've been here. Without asking the question of why did the machine get shut off in the first place? Well, come to find out, the utility companies were having an issue and they were overhauling the electrical grid. So there was like a 2-week period that they did have to shut the machine off at 11:30 so that they could work on the infrastructure from like noon to 1. So there was time, that was the machine was shut down while they were working on it. Well, it got improved, Joshua, and they never went back to the way it was of turning the machine on. And they lost all of that productivity and the cost to shut it down and restart it. But nobody challenged it. It's just, I don't know, it's just the way it is, right? Like
malicious compliance. It's just a strict stick-to-itiveness that you've got to do it this way because it's always been done that. I hate that. That's why we talked about earlier in the podcast that people care about the why. And as soon as you start telling people about the why, you'll get people who say, well, why not this way? And if you're not willing to listen to the ability to make an improvement or, make a change, then what are you in business for? Just because it worked or is working, the strongest man in the world failed every single time until they succeeded. And nobody talks about the times they failed. They only talk about the times that they succeeded. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you've got to fail to succeed. Sometimes you've got to break it for it to be better. And I know how cliche that sounds, but many people are terrified of change.
Yeah, it's so true. And you summed it up, man. You summed it up there. And it's what's become your leadership style. And, one of the key fundamental rules of leadership is, especially when it comes to business, we could have faulty business models, but most of the time it's a leadership problem, not a business problem. And I think, listening to your story, listening to, throughout the podcast here, everything has kind of been happening for you in what's really grown into what your leadership style is, right? It's really into a lot of the servant leadership style of, let me listen. What do you want to see improved? How can I help make this better for you, for your family, for your community? And let me serve you in that way, right? So that kind of morphs in how what your style becomes, because there's different leadership styles, but your default leadership style is more into the servant style, and ultimately that's the holy grail.
Who knows more about the community than the people who live in that community?
That's right.
Like, my role as a representative of a neighborhood is to be the voice of the neighborhood. It's not my job to tell the neighborhood what's best for them. Now, if I go to a meeting or I'm meeting with an engineer or a consultant and we're talking about widening a road, it is my job to go back to the neighborhood and say, look, we met with an engineer, we met with a consultant, we need to widen this road because it's going to make the lives of everybody who lives in the neighborhood better. But if the people then of the neighborhood tell me we don't want the road widened, it's my job to report that back to the city and tell them. This year, I was very fortunate to be made president or chair of the Real Estate Association. And we are through in a transitional time for our boards, a lot of stuff happening in organized real estate in Ontario right now. And one of the first initiatives myself and my chair-elect did is we're meeting with all the brokers of record of all the brokerages that make up our real estate association. Because as president, I don't think it's my job to tell them what they want to make their lives better. So we're going around and we're doing one-to-one and one-to-many meetings with the brokers and the brokerages. And we're saying, what would you like to see from your association this year? And I'm bringing those reports back to my board. Because at the end of the day, I didn't find myself in the role of chair or president of the Real Estate Association or the role of city councilor if I didn't have some good ideas, if people didn't believe in my ability to be able to be a leadership and to be able to lead by example. But I have found that my life is infinitely better when I surround myself with people who know more about things I know nothing about. So
Yep.
being the chair of the real estate association, yes, I'm going to be in an incredible position to be meeting with MPs and members of parliament and premiers, and meeting with leaders and our mayors, and meeting with all these great people. But if I go to them and I have nothing to talk about because I didn't ask my membership what kind of questions they want me to ask, or ask my membership what they would like to see to make their lives better, then what am I doing in the role of chair?
Yeah.
And that, you're right, it is my leadership style. My leadership style is tell me what you want so I can go and tell you whether or not we can get it.
Yeah. That's so good, man. It really is. I mean, just the foundation in which you've navigated through life to really build, those concrete pillars in your foundation. I think, it's the most solid that you can have going into a tremendous amount of uncertainty into the future, especially kind of in the real estate space. What's gonna happen? So as we kind of wrap up here and taking us home here, Joshua, go out into the future a little bit. Go to legacy. Let's go a little bit of impact. And as a real estate leader, entrepreneur that really is committed to making a difference in the community, wanting to build some type of lasting legacy beyond sales, what areas would you encourage them to invest? Where do they need to get better? Where do they need to get more committed? Where do they need to get more involved?
Okay, thank you for this opportunity. People don't care what you can do for them. They care what you can do for them. And if you want to know what people want you to do for them, you have to ask them. So if you're a realtor or you're a business owner and you're actually committed to make a meaningful difference in your clients' lives and in your community and the communities that you serve and do business in, ask them what they need from you. So maybe they need somebody who is supporting a local sports team. Maybe they need somebody who's helping promote the local trail system. Maybe there's been an economic fallout and you need to be a part of that economic recovery by supporting the local small business owners. Maybe there's a need for a toy drive. Maybe there's a need for volunteers. You have the ability as business owners to take your team, whether you have one employee or you have 50 or hundreds of employees, and you can encourage them to make meaningful differences in their communities. And the best way that I have found is to ask your clients what kind of causes they would want to see you support. So when I say nobody cares what you can do for them, they want to know what you can do for them. So many business owners are so committed that they know what they want to do. So they want to tell everybody, here's what I can do for you. But they don't care what you can do. They care what you can do for them. And you have to ask them. And when you ask them, you have to listen. And if you're going to spend all your time trying to do things for people that you can't do, you're going to find yourself just stuck in the mud. So do the things that you can do for the people you've asked, what can I do? And maybe I'm going way into the weeds on this, but it's super simple. Like when my clients, I build a great relationship with my clients in real estate. So when I find out that they've got a kid in the little league, I, go to the leadership and I say, hey guys, I'm thinking about throwing a couple $100 to sponsor some jerseys for these clients' kids. It's not a lot of money for us. It's a couple of $100, but for like 10 kids on a baseball team, getting new uniforms, that's a huge deal. It's a very small thing that you can do, and your clients will remember you forever. We do, and I'm not sure what it's like in your community, but we have a really incredible neighborhood association for almost every neighborhood in our community. So every year our company does movie nights in those neighborhoods. So we sponsor and partner with a bunch of different local businesses in the neighborhood. And every year, every week during the summer, we go out and we hand out free popcorn, free water and snacks. And we do a great big projector, and like hundreds of people come out to watch these movies. The cost is very negligible. But people remember coming out and having a movie night on behalf of your company. And we don't do this alone. We do it with the neighborhood association. We do it with our mortgage partners and our lawyer partners and our development partners. And we actively encourage the businesses that we're working with to get out there and do meaningful stuff in the community. And let me put a caveat on this. It is not enough to throw money at it and hope that it makes a difference. You can't just sponsor everything and hope it works out. You need to actually be responsible for you, yourself, or members of your team physically going out and being a part of these events. It's not enough to just throw money at it. Go actively be involved.
Yeah.
So my advice to anybody who's looking at actively making a difference, ask your community where a difference needs to be made, and then help solve it. And don't do it alone. Bring in as many of your business associates and partners and, complementary businesses, and do it together. And that has been the secret to my success. And I don't mind sharing it with you, because if every business owner went out there and emulated what we're doing, I think the world would be a better place.
I couldn't agree more, man. That's so cool. And, that example brings everything we talked about all together, right? You brought in that key word, right? Those magical moments, those experiences don't just happen, right? They happen by design. And
can I throw something in here?
Yeah,
Sorry.
absolutely.
You know what the number one thing we get asked when we do all this crazy stuff?
What's that?
They ask us why. And that's an opportunity to tell our story.
Yeah.
And that, to me, brings it full circle, is that people are constantly saying, like, what does this have to do with real estate? Well, I'm so glad you asked. Let me tell you why sponsoring a movie night for the neighborhood association helps our real estate company grow.
Yeah. It's so good, man. It's so good. Joshua, I appreciate you jumping in. I know for time's sake, we could definitely dive in a lot more, but
I could keep going forever. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
No, it's fantastic. And I like I said, I love, kind of the mindset, the approach, the core foundation around, the storytelling, the experience, getting out of the community, asking how you can be of service, listening, and then delivering on what you can do to improve and help the community win. And, a byproduct is you get to win, but obviously that's not the goal. It just happens to be one of the downstream ripple effects of making a difference in the community.
It's just a win-win for everybody. I'm so grateful to have found this career path, to have found this meaning in my life. Because, I didn't talk about it a lot on the podcast, but I'll end it here. 4 years ago, my life changed when my daughter was born. 2 years ago, my second daughter came into this world. Evelyn and Charlotte are my everything. They are my entire world. They are the root of why I do what I do today. And all I want to do is leave a world for them I can be proud of, and that they can just, pick up and go from there. So for me, that's my why, is, leave a world that's, I could be happy to leave behind for them.
So good, brother. What a way to wrap it up. Thank you again. I appreciate you jumping in, and, you guys listening, connect with Joshua Wall at
Real Joshua Wall everywhere. Real is us. We're Real, REAL. So Real Joshua Wall everywhere.
Perfect. I love it. Brother, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Guys, give Joshua lots of love, and we'll see you guys soon. See ya.